All right. Welcome to the first ever live stream that I'm doing in my first ever crossover episode that I'm technically hosting with the lovely Locked On Coyotes host, Robyn Leano. Welcome. And we have a lot to talk about with this game that took place a couple minutes ago, actually.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely have a lot to get to.
yeah, so we have a lot to get forward to on today's episode of Locked On Blues, Locked On Coyotes crossover. And I'm just a fair warning for everybody that's watching live on YouTube right now. First time ever doing this. So just bear with me while, computers and technical things, but let's get into the episode.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, I had to put the intro out there, but before we get into today's episode, I just want to let you know because today is Wednesday, which means that it is the perfect time to start thinking about betting on football. So today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, let's do this, Robyn. So, obviously, this was a very high scoring game, and the Blues ended up taking that victory at the end. But the Coyotes, they looked really good and dominant. Can you talk to me about what you liked about how they played tonight?
Yeah, this team, I think there's a lot of expectation going into what I'd see from the team this in this specific game. It's funny because I think most of my eyes was before the game was getting ready. It's like, all right, Logan Cooley is going to be on that top line with Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz. Everyone's paying attention to that. But that wasn't the line that was making all the noise. It was the Matthias Maccelli, Lawson Krause, Nick Bukestad line. And they really impressed. I think they were high flying throughout the entire game. I feel like they never let off for the entire 60 minutes, which is something I want to see in a team.
Yeah, whenever the Blues take on the Coyotes, my biggest fear is Mr. Hometown Kid himself, Clayton Keller. He has been on fire lately. So I was a little surprised to not see his line be as aggressive. But as you said, they were really on it for the whole 60 minutes. So I have to ask because obviously this was the most high scoring game. And I know before we began the show, we talked about, high scoring games. Was this the most high scoring game in Blues and Coyotes history together?
It's actually tied for the most. And
Okay.
actually most recently happened only last season back in February. It was 6-5,
Wow.
same score in overtime where the Blues won that one as well.
That is insane. Wow. Okay. So tied for the most high scoring game, 6-5. I wonder what it is between these two teams because I feel like the Coyotes are a team that unfortunately gets a very bad rep. And this
Mm.
season they have actually been, and I've said this, I've admitted this, that I was wrong. They've been one of the more dominant teams in the Central. So do you feel like this game tonight is going to set them back, or do you still think that they have the momentum due to the fact that they had so many goals?
I will say that this I think is a little bit of a setback for them in the sense that they are going into an incredibly tough what my co-host Matthew and I are referring to as an incredibly tough gauntlet in the next 6 games, including this one. As they're running through each of the last 5 Stanley Cup champions, the St. Louis Blues being one of them. They got Vegas and Colorado and Tampa, all those teams coming up, all just in the next week, and it's not going to be easy for them. Yeah, this team's better, but they're going to have a fight, and I feel like that I said this to my co-host. I feel like they really needed this win. Maybe they get the confidence from those goals, but I think the win would have been better.
Absolutely. And even, with the Blues, looking at how they play against the Coyotes, one thing I've noticed is that our defense really struggles against you guys. And it's been like this, I feel like, this whole entire season where the defense really crumbles. And I know I had this on for later in the show about the goalies, but I'm telling you, the Coyotes bring out the worst in St. Louis. And tonight, it was very evident when we saw absolutely nothing from the defense. I mean, we saw like some good stuff happening, but that was mostly Joel Hofer and net, not even the defense themselves. So I was actually kind of taken back by how your offense is really able to dominate a somewhat improved Blues defense. The Blues, I will say, the first game against the Coyotes and Blues this season, I believe the Coyotes won 6-2 that game. They were dominant. And the Blues looked awful. So then after that game, I feel like the Blues were really working on improving and the defense got better. Torrey Krug was playing better. And tonight, I think this was actually a huge downfall for the Blues' defense.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting point. I feel like that's something that you can even take into account, especially with, this, like, I think decent amount of the Coyotes team also being injured too. That kind of makes into a huge factor. But you're right. I feel like I was going to make the joke about defense on either side too. My joke was going to be like, I feel like both of these teams have already gone to Thanksgiving. Both the defense already to Thanksgiving dinner because they're already somewhere else.
Thinking about that turkey. I'm telling you, Mullet Arena, I don't know what it is, but it's like insane how high scoring the games have been lately, especially this season for Arizona. And I don't think the Blues have had that many they've had high scoring games against like the Lightning and games like where it's not a close game. This was a close game the whole time. I was very surprised. I have to tell you, like,
yeah, and I will give credit to the Coyotes, office and hockey ops for building the team at least through this off season, getting enough assets to get that kind of a team where the offense actually matters a lot more. I was worried for a while. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I feel like this team is probably going to be another mediocre team. We're going to see, and I was thinking that this team's probably going to be maybe sixth in the division because at the best, because I was like, yeah, because I know they're better than the Blackhawks.
They are.
Maybe another, and maybe let's like one other team, but I don't know who that other team might be at the time. And now it's
hopefully the Blues. That could be though. It really could be.
I mean, if you saw the latest Locked On NHL Power Rankings, the Blues were up on one, I think, over the Coyotes. I think
I was surprised about that.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprising one. It was.
I didn't vote that way myself. For those that are watching, we do power rankings here on the Locked On NHL network, where we basically rank, obviously, where the teams in the Central and all the other divisions are. And I had the Blues kind of low. I think the Blues are one of those teams, and I always joke about this, but it's like a roller coaster. They're either going up that hill or they're going straight down quite fast. And tonight, and I just want to also mention that Brayden Schenn got his 600th career point tonight, which is phenomenal. Been around the league for quite a while, and he really had to go through years of proving himself to even get to the position where he is. So that's a good accomplishment. But right when the Coyotes tied it up right after that, I'm like, oh no, we're going down this hill quite fast. And, the one thing I will say, though, between these two teams, it is always very interesting, the battle. And I have to give credit where credit is due. It's probably the most entertaining team I think the Blues have played against in the Central so far this year. So, but it is weird, right? Because it really could have been anyone's game tonight.
Oh, yeah, no matter when. I feel like that's the case for the most part between these two teams, no matter what. Even some of the more dominating games, like those are, I think, the outliers. Those are like the games where it's like a 6-2 like previously. Those are like outliers because you see these games, they're always battling. And I love to turn back in time all the way to the one of the COVID years. I think the second where the Coyotes and Blues had that 7-game series against each other. It was like nonstop in the middle of this, just in the middle of the season, just a 7-game series, just because
it was amazing.
It's funny because like that was when I was actually first taken over as host of Locked On Coyotes. So thinking about it, like almost 3 years ago at this point, and I I was doing so many episodes, and I'm like, all right, and I was a solo host. And I'm like, all right, I got the Blues again and again
And again
and
and again.
again. It's like, how do they do this?
At that point, I just remember watching and I'm like, I feel like I know this Coyotes team. Like I felt like very a part of it. And I'm like, wait, this is not normal. But I feel like having so many games, and I feel like with the scheduling this year, it's quite weird because we've played each other like 3 times already. Or yeah, 3 already. Yeah, which is insane. I feel like that's just kind of a short amount of time to play as many games. I'm not complaining because again, good hockey and anything can happen in these games. It's better than I was gonna make the joke, but it's better than playing the Dallas Stars this many times early on in the season. I do not want to play them yet. Again,
I don't know. Like, I mean, I think I'd like to see Coyotes play the Stars a little bit more after what I saw last week.
But I'll say that, and then the Blues will end up getting like shut out like 6-0, and then I'm gonna be like, oh no, I talked this into reality. Before we talk about more about the game, I just want to let you know about Sleeper. So a new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Robert Thomas could score 50 goals and the Blues could hoist the Stanley Cup. And you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. So to win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Blues fans and Coyotes fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So Clayton Keller, as I did mention, my favorite Coyotes player since he is a St. Louis Blues native, you can even use his statistics. So as I said, use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right. So the high-scoring game, I know that we kind of touched on that a little bit, but were you expecting to see that tonight with these two teams?
Actually, no. It's funny because like one of the things I do every pregame is I run through the odds on FanDuel, and I'm like, all right, the total points is this. It's almost always 6.5, which kind of makes sense. And I'm like, all right, let's see where what I feel like this game is going to be. And I'm like, I feel like it's going to be like right at that under. It's probably going to be like a 4-2 game or something like that. By the time I saw it, like 3-3 after a period, I was like, this is gonna be different. This is gonna be different.
Yeah, I was so off. I was like, oh, the Blues are gonna win 4-3. And then after that first period, I'm like, okay, you know what? This could still happen. And then when the Blues got the 4th goal, I'm like, okay, do I think it's gonna stay this way? No. But for that split second, I'm like, well, it could work out. And then it ended up just going on and on. I do have to say though, and it's funny, like I'm this game just happened obviously a little bit ago, so I'm still, remembering, thinking about my emotions during the game. I was actually very stressed out at one point when Jordan Binghamton obviously left the ice shortly after your goalie did. Do you feel like there was a momentum shift? Because when I looked back and that moment happened, I felt like once Joel Hofer went in net for the Blues, a complete momentum shift happened on the ice. And I don't necessarily know if the players on the Coyotes were a little bit like, okay, this kid's been hot lately, or was it more so of, okay, this is not a good matchup between, because I mean, again, the Coyotes did beat the Blues 6-2 with Hofer in net. So do you think maybe, I don't know, like they just kind of felt like he was on it?
It's really weird when I have to think about how to break that down, because one thing I'll turn to in as these how weird hockey can be and how weird the Coyotes can be is I just turn to their like the recent matchups against the Kings, for example, where like they'll like score 4 unanswered against Phoenix Copley, and all of a sudden the most recent game is against the Kings, they can't score 1 against them, and you're just like, what is happening? Like, so maybe it's just like, hey, they're riding. Yeah, like you said, maybe riding a hot hand. They get shocked when things get change up, or they're just not ready for change. There's just so many different things that go on. I think they just lost a lot of momentum in general. If a lot of different things, maybe even just past the goalie change.
Yeah, because I really thought as soon as, let me go take a look back at my score. Yeah, when the Coyotes went up 5-4, I seriously thought to myself, okay, they're gonna get another goal. Like I was just so prepared that Binnington was gonna stay in net. I didn't think that they were gonna take him out, to be honest. As crazy as that sounds, he's a very emotional goalie. I'm sure you've seen the videos of him freaking out when he gets pulled. That hasn't happened this season so far where he's freaked out. I was like, okay, are they going to risk it? And they obviously pulled him, and then Hofer went into net. But I really thought Arizona was on such a momentum that they were going to continue to score. So I was kind of surprised to see that shift happen. But I feel like if they and this is my hot take, I feel like if they left Binnington in the net, the Coyotes would have won that game. And
it's certainly possible. I like to definitely think that like maybe that could have happened, because I know that, to me, I think the thing is, because I'm like the stat I like to look at right now, that really changed it all, is taking a look at the trend on penalties.
yeah,
Like the moment the Coyotes took their first penalty, I kind of already had a feeling, all right, this is over. They're gonna start taking more and more and more.
well, the Blues suck on the power play, so I'm just saying that you're playing.
I mean, they did kill a decent amount, but the Coyotes weren't able to bounce back on their momentum and be able to take advantage. But
well, another thing that the Coyotes did really well tonight was how they were in face-offs. I mean, not face-offs. That was the Blues. Oh my God, that was not a dig at the Coyotes. I read that backwards. The Blues usually suck at it. I feel so bad. I'm like, wait, I did not. And the fact that this is live, I was not taking shots, I promise. No, the Coyotes, they actually kept up good with their shots on goal. That's what I was going to say. The Blues did somewhat well on face-offs. They usually don't do well on face-offs. So that was something that was surprising. But for me, I felt like the Coyotes actually had more puck possession. And it's crazy how the stats will tell you differently. But I felt like this was in a game where the Coyotes were the more dominant team. And even breaking down the stats, I am a big stat person. I love numbers and reading things like that. And, besides the fact that maybe the Blues had one more power play opportunity than the Coyotes, there was still, I would like to say, a lot of that similarity. As you said, obviously the penalty minutes for the Coyotes were quite high, but
that 10-minute misconduct does make a difference. But
yeah, that somewhat does something. But it is interesting, though, to see these two teams, because I really thought that the Coyotes, they had the control of the game. And it just seemed like that after I feel bad about, wow, that was actually like.
It's interesting that you mentioned that too, because I'm actually thinking of how special teams went as a whole. And I think even regardless too, I feel like even though the Coyotes bounced back on a lot of those on a lot of opportunities and were able to get again and keep it at, for the most part at 5-5 for as long as it was, I think the thing that killed them the most was allowing two shorthanded goals in a single power play. Like,
we're better at shorthanded than we are power play goals, because again, the Blues suck on the power play.
And it's interesting for a reason. And it's interesting because the Coyotes have, I think, like their 6th or 7th best power play. So that's something. That's why I didn't expect it. I'm like, you do that?
I could not believe it. I'm watching this game and I'm thinking to myself, this is the most embarrassing. Oh, there's my cat. This is the most embarrassing thing I am seeing out of the Blues, because their power play, whenever they're on it, I'm like, this is a disadvantage for us. For the other team, it's quite an advantage. Like, you have a better opportunity of getting a shorthanded goal than the Blues do about getting a power play goal. It happens every single time, and it just cracks me up because it's the same pattern. Before I go on to our final thoughts, I'm just going to do one quick thing. And what is that one quick thing? Well, I am going to talk to you about BetterHelp. All right. So what I like about BetterHelp especially is I know sometimes the holiday season is difficult. I know I personally struggle during the holidays, and I'm very open about that. But with BetterHelp, it definitely helps you move forward. And if you've ever benefited from therapy, like I have, you can understand that sometimes it's a little bit difficult. Sometimes it's not always easy finding the perfect match. But with BetterHelp, they do make it super easy to do so because not all therapists you're going to click with. So they allow you the option to meet with different therapists, and that way you can feel the most comfortable. And if you haven't been to therapy, it is something that is so empowering, and I'm a huge advocate for that. Mental health is super important. So I always just want to put that out there that if that's the one thing that you can take away from today's episode, I hope this is the takeaway. So find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp and visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNHL today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNHL. I come back and I have the chat pulled up, and Sydney says, I feel better when we are on the penalty kill than the power play. Oh, I love hockey.
I will quote my one of my former co-hosts in saying this, but hockey is dumb.
Hockey is like it's ridiculous. Like, you would think that I would come on here and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Meanwhile, I'm like, I don't know what I just witnessed tonight. The whole game, I'm like, there is no way this is happening. That was me the whole game. It was a roller coaster, this game. How do I even, as a Blues fan, how am I supposed to walk away from this game and think to myself, oh yeah, this makes me feel really great about the future of the team, when at the end of the day, allowing another team to put in 5 goals is still slightly concerning. That's not something where I'm going to walk away saying, oh yeah, this is awesome. Our certain goalie played awful. It's funny. It's a lot of things, but it's not comforting.
It's the just the emotions that you get from being a hockey fan in general, and I can tell you, as my my co-host now, Matt, he's a pretty diehard Coyotes fan, and I experienced the emotions through him, because like I don't consider myself a massive fan. Like, I have a huge soft spot for the Coyotes, but I've been covering the team for even besides the podcast for 7-8 years at this point. So
Right.
to me, it's just like a professional, it's a professional thing, but I've covered them for so long. I get I feel the emotion too, especially when I'm near fans who are just so passionate. And I'm like, God, why do I feel this too much? I shouldn't have to feel it.
I get that completely. It's funny that you even said that. I was watching with my cat. My cat is my favorite person, animal, whatever you want to call it, to watch games with, because she just enjoys the game of hockey. Besides the point, shout out to anybody that has a pet and knows what I'm talking about. I said to her, I'm like, Stella, we cannot do this. We have to just not watch the screen, because it just looked, I was getting stressed out. This is Thanksgiving Eve. I'm, happy and jolly for the holidays. Meanwhile, I am like, okay, I'm really thankful. NHL gods, please do something. Hockey gods, please don't let this game go downhill that quickly. I thought it was, call me crazy, I really thought it was going to be a higher scoring game after both teams had both 5 goals. I seriously thought it was going to be about another two goals, I want to say, for each team.
Yeah, and that's why I brought out my my media guide mid game, because I was like, all right, let's see exactly what's not just the highest scoring game in between Blues and the Coyotes, but what's the highest scoring game in Coyotes history? And the Coyotes / Jets, original Jets, not whatever current iteration of Jets we call it now.
Yeah, but the original, before they went to Atlanta and then they came back to Winnipeg, and
exactly
hockey history.
But no, I was looking at that and I was like, all right, let's see how close we can get. And like, yeah, I think if a couple extra goals would have been scored, it would have been real up there.
It would have been really cool to make some history tonight in that sense, because I think that I know that this might sound like maybe I'm too critical on the team, and I definitely am. But I feel like both teams, like there was a lot of good to take away offensively, not defensively. Offensively, want to make that very clear. I am very upset with our defense tonight, Blues fans. I'm embarrassed. I'm disappointed. I'm upset with how Binner was in net tonight. There was a lot of things that I can come on here and complain about. I'm not going to do that because, again, 2 points is still 2 points. And I'm happy for Brayden and, Kevin Hayes. Woohoo. He finally did something after how long, right? Again, I'm being nice. This team is frustrating, but I love this team. And that's part of being a fan. It's a part of being able to come on here and say, you know what? Yeah, it's a win. But was it a good win? Yes and no. Offensively, yes. Defensively, I wanted to punch a wall.
Yeah, I love going into always the thought process. Like, it's always nice to, to like win ugly over, what was the term I'm looking for? Win ugly over lose, or having a really bad loss, or even whatever it might be. I'm not sure. You get what I'm trying to say here. Like, my brain, I'm like
your team put up a good fight, so it's better than being shut out. Like,
there we go.
100%. I would rather my team be like super close and then lose than being completely shut out. But it's like funny though, because when the Blues they defeated the Lightning like 5-0, it was like insane. It was more than 5-0. It was like 8 something, whatever is high. They had like 2 hat tricks or was that the Avalanche? No, that was the Avalanche game. They did beat the Lightning 5-0. The Avalanche, they beat like 8-2. They had 2 hat tricks. I did not feel bad about that. I cannot stand the Avalanche. Obviously in the Central, you know who the top teams are. It is usually, especially these past couple seasons, the Dallas Stars and the Avalanche. Any single time that a team, and I hate the Blackhawks, so I'm not, I'm not even going to include them. Let's go say like the Blues, the Coyotes, the Jets, any of those teams beats one of those 2 teams, I will feel joy. I just love seeing teams that are continuously thriving, going up and up, get demolished. It makes me feel good.
Which makes me intrigued for the Coyotes upcoming, because the Avalanche are one of the teams they have coming up, and it's interesting. I was actually having this conversation on Locked On Coyotes earlier this week, and saying that the Coyotes have this really weird relationship with the Avalanche, in which their games are always boom or bust. It's always they either get shut out by the Avalanche 5-0, or they have like a bout like we just saw between these 2 teams tonight.
Yep. And
there's no in between.
Their next game is the Predators, which will be the battle of the Schenn brothers, which is super cool. They actually played together on the Flyers, Brayden and Luke. But that to me is, oh man, I really hope they win. Because obviously the Preds, I always forget about them too. They just haven't been consistent this season. And I don't mean that in a bad way. They just haven't. That's the reality. They lost a lot of good players. And obviously when you lose good players, you're not going to be successful. But the Blues, like, here's the thing. They did lose to the San Jose Sharks. And that's not a diss at the Sharks. But
it is.
But it is. And I feel bad about saying that. I mean, like, even the Oilers this season have gone downhill, and it's like a dumpster fire. I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, this is cringy. But I'm like, wait, the Blues are one of the only couple teams that have lost to the Sharks, and it's almost 2 months into the season. So, they realistically, they could lose against the Predators, but we will see. Robyn, since we are live and I'm going to put this episode up, do you want to promote your channel and your social media? That way people can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find Locked On Coyotes wherever you get your podcasts. That includes YouTube. You can find us on the Sirius XM radio app, and you can also listen to us ad-free on Amazon Music. On social media, you can find us at LO_Coyotes. And I'm personally at Robyn_Leano. That is Robyn with a Y_LEANO.
Awesome. And Blues fans, always make sure you check us out on Twitter at Locked On Blues. And of course, my Twitter at Haley T. Simon. Always tweeting, usually Blues hockey. But I hope you all enjoy your Thanksgiving. Robyn, thank you so much for coming on this post-game show. And good luck to your team in their next adventure. And I will talk to you all tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.